Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to be setting up Vagrant, and this is an alternative to doing things in a real simple way like setting up virtual hosts and following some of my other videos where you just get to make a folder in a virtual host and you're off to doing some local development, opening things up in the browser and treating your Mac like it's a server. If you want to have a project where you're going to be collaborating with other developers though, and you need your environment to be exactly the same as theirs, which is exactly the same as the production server, then you can't really rely on your Mac as a server to do that. So for instance, if you wanted to set up like Memcache or Redis, or if you wanted a very specific version of a database, or let's say your programming language has certain configurations which you don't want to muck up your MacBook with, then you're going to want to use Vagrant for that. Or if you're a lone developer and for those same reasons you don't want to muck up your MacBook with all kinds of software to run locally in order to have a local environment, then you're going to want to use Vagrant for this as well. Okay, so Vagrant piggyback rides on VirtualBox. Actually, Vagrant will piggyback ride on several different virtual machine software, but I think VirtualBox is just the easiest to use, I think. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to install VirtualBox, which I have here. Actually, let me just move this out of the way now that we're done with the intro. Okay. Okay, so here's VirtualBox. You can see that I have a few things going on over here. Everything is stopped. If I wanted to create a new one, I can go over here and give it a name. If you're familiar with how to set up servers, you need an ISO, so you're going to have to go on the internet and download the right ISO and configure this. And I actually kind of find VirtualBox a little bit cumbersome to use, and also if I were to set up a VirtualBox on my computer here for a certain project, my coworkers might set up a completely different type of local environment with VirtualBox, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of us having the same environment. So it's really kind of not the best way to do things, but you do need this to be installed when you get Vagrant. So here at the Vagrant site, go to download and get whichever one of these is best for you. And then I would recommend going and following all of their documentation because it is really good. But we're going to be kind of explaining some of this just kind of like in a nutshell here in this video. So if you were to follow this documentation, they would have you do probably this next, where you actually get some ISOs onto this computer for, let's say, Ubuntu. We're going to be doing Ubuntu 14.04. And let's say we wanted to go and get that ISO, so you would do, let's see what boxes we have right now. We can do Vagrant box list. Okay, so this will show us on our entire computer here what boxes are available for us to start off with, and I've named them, and this is kind of the convention here for Vagrant, is to name them by their Ubuntu name, and then if it's like base 64 or something like that. So trusty 64 is basically 14.04. That's the one that we're going to be using. And let me show you how we got to this point where we have 3 boxes in the first place. If you do a search for Vagrant boxes, you'll end up at this website, Vagrant Box ES, and it's very good. They show you here how to add a new box. So you type Vagrant Box add, you give it a title. The title can be really whatever you want, but there's kind of a convention that we use, like I was saying. So then you give it a URL. If you scroll down, you can see there's all kinds of boxes in here. It's very easy to get confused as to which. I'll show you the kind of easy way to figure it out. If you just do a search for 14.04, it looks like there's 6 results. These first 2, it says cloud image, so I don't want those. We go down here, and finally it says Ubuntu server, and it says 14.04, and it says that this one is for VirtualBox, whereas this one is for VMware. Looks like it's the base 64 version, so that's pretty much what I'm going to need. So I'm going to copy this URL right here, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to do a Vagrant box add, and then you're going to paste this URL, and you're going to hit enter, and it's going to take however long it takes to download, about 500 megabytes worth of ISO. So that might take a little while, but you're eventually going to get to a point where you can do a Vagrant box list, and you're going to see what I see here. Okay, so this is like the name that you gave it, the title. It's just kind of like a shortcut name for Vagrant. Okay, so the next step that they're going to want you to do, I don't want you to do this part, but they're going to want you to do Vagrant init, which is going to make what's called the Vagrant file. It's just kind of like a configuration file for how to set up the box. We're not going to do that because after that, there's kind of a variety of best practices that the Vagrant documentation doesn't necessarily show you. So what I created for you was this little GitHub project. It's called Vagrant Kickstarter, and let's just go and grab this. We'll do, let's see. Oh, you know what? I've already done that. So here, here are the two things that I'm going to give you. Here's the Vagrant file. Let's just do, we'll just go over to Sublime and make this easier on ourselves. Okay, so here's what the Vagrant file looks like that they give you. Actually, it's not the one that they give you, it's the one that I gave you. This is partially what the Vagrant init will do for you. You can see here that for this particular box, we're going to be using our trusty 64. That's the name that we gave it. And let's see, how do I explain this part? So when Vagrant first launches this box, it's just going to be a really blank ISO. It's not going to have any software installed on it. And so Vagrant gives you this option of having a certain file, a bash script, run as soon as the box gets loaded. And so this line right here basically says, hey, look inside of my VM provision folder, which is right here, and look for provision Ubuntu 14.04.sh. And we're going to look at that soon. But that's basically my instruction manual for how I want to set up the server, if you want to think of it that way. And then this is pretty much like the standard IP address. I think they want you to do 10.0.0, and then I think this can be anything 10 or above over here. I guess read about that in the documentation, but this is going to be the IP address of our box that we're creating. And this part right here is also something I just copied and pasted from their documentation. It just helps manage the amount of CPU usage and the amount of memory that my box is allowed to use. Okay, so it looks like we've set it up to be 1 gigabyte. All right, so let's go over and take a look at what it's like to fire up this box. So just by having this going right here, and this references this Vagrant file, if you remember, references our VM provision script, which is right here. Notice I have one for 13.10 if you want to see that one too, but this one is for 14.04. We're going to be going over this in detail, but right now let's fire up the box just because it does take a few minutes, and then I can explain what's going on. So we're going to do Vagrant up. And Vagrant up is not only how you set up the box the very first time. It's going to notice right now that the box isn't set up yet, but also in the future when we want to shut down the box and work on other things for a few weeks and then come back and work on this project, you're also going to use Vagrant up to get the box running again. So we're going to type that, and you can see that it's importing the base box trusty 64. And this is going to take just a little bit of time to run. Let me explain over here though what's happening. It's going to import this this ISO. It's going to set it up for you. Then it's going to run this provisioning file. So let's go and look at that. Okay, so in case you're not terribly familiar with what a bash script is, just really quick, this is for the beginners. All these commands, like let's say apt get update or apt get install Apache 2, these kinds of things, you're used to getting into a brand new server and SSHing into it and then running those kinds of things by hand. A bash script allows you to basically put all those commands into a file and then just run the file, and it will run all those commands for you. Okay, so the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to do our apt-get update. That's pretty normal. Because I'm in Phoenix, I'm going to set the local time zone to be Phoenix for me. Obviously, you can make an adjustment there. For Apache, and notice that these echoes, those are just going to be things that go out to the screen for us. In fact, maybe we can start to see some. Nope, not quite yet. if I right now it's setting up our box, right, and in just a second it's going to be setting up our provisioning file, and it's going to have this output which is green, and it's going to be telling us, you know, what's going on. It's going to be going back and forth, and these little echoes kind of tell us like what it's working on. Okay, so those aren't too important, but okay, so let me explain line by line what we have going on here. And it's hard to get your head wrapped around how Vagrant works, so we're going to go real slow with this. But the first things that it does in this provisioning file is pretty simple. We're going to be doing an apt-get install for Apache 2 and Apache 2 utils. Okay, so that's pretty normal for setting up an Apache environment. Notice this option right here for yes. That means say yes to any questions it asks, because usually when you install something, it asks you, are you sure you want to install this? And so doing that option for why will say yes to those things, because again, we're not going to be having an opportunity to say yes to any of these things. This script is just going to run, and we want it to get all the way through it. Okay, so this next step right here, this is sometimes required. FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name. And sometimes when you restart Apache without setting this up, without this saying server name localhost inside of this file right here, sometimes Apache restarts kind of freak out about that. So this just sets that up for us. And then we're going to enable the configuration for FQDN. We're going to set up mod rewrite. We're going to enable that. And you know, mod rewrite's very common to use for most people who are doing Apache work. Apache comes with a default virtual host, and so we're going to disable that. Okay. So the next step is we're going to need to actually set up our code on this particular box. That's actually where things get really interesting, the way that Vagrant works. So Vagrant's actually going to take everything that's inside of our project right here, everything that's inside of our web root, and it's going to put it inside of a special folder called Vagrant inside of our VirtualBox. Let's see how far along that is coming. Okay, so you can see that it's we've got some stuff going on here. All this stuff in green. It looks like we're in the middle of doing our apt-get update right now. Okay, so we'll come to that in a second. Let's actually let's fire up a new one here, and let's do this. Okay, so now we have an index file, and I guess we can put something in it. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to explain. It's going to take everything that's inside of this folder, and it's going to put it inside of /Vagrant inside of the VirtualBox. So the idea here is that we're going to be able to work on code locally inside of our Mac using Sublime Text Editor just as usual, and every single time we make a change to something, that change and all those files, all the files that you see over here on the left-hand side of your, your Sublime Text Editor, if this is the editor you're using, all of these are going to end up inside of your VirtualBox automatically because of symlinks and because of some cool magic that VirtualBox has going on. They're going to automatically be inside of the virtual machine at a folder called Vagrant, and it's going to be on the root of that computer. So let me show you real quick what we're going to do to set up a virtual host on side of that computer so that we can actually see our project in the browser. Okay, so looking over here again, the first thing that I'm going to do is with Apache is I'm going to remove the default folder, which is var www. We're going to completely remove that and wipe it out. Notice that we've actually also disabled this. Remember, we talked about that in the last step. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set up a symlink that points from var www over to Vagrant. So in the computer, you should be able to go to, in the virtual machine, you should be able to go to var www, and you'll be able to see the entire project. Again, all your code will automatically be there, and so that's really cool. Some of this kind of stuff is hard to explain until we actually get into the box. Oh, is it done? Nope, over here. How far along is it? Oh, it's done. Okay, so let's see about getting inside. All right, we're going to take a little break from that provisioning file, and I'm going to show you what's going on inside of here. We're going to do, just to show you where we are, we're inside of our example folder, and we have our index file, and we have our Vagrant file and our VM provision, all this kind of stuff that we've been looking at over here. Okay, so if you actually want to get inside your box and it's running, you can do a command for Vagrant SSH, and that will plop you right inside of your new Ubuntu 14.04 virtual machine. And the user that we're logged in as right now doesn't really have sudoing capabilities, and so you might want to do a sudo su to change that. Okay, so right now, if you notice, we are at the root user inside of our brand new virtual machine, and if we cd up to the top level, actually cd to the top level and do an ls, you'll see that there is a folder here called Vagrant, and if we do an ls for that, you can see that it has our project. If we go over to, let's see, cd var www, you can see that that also has our project, and that's because of that symlink that we just did right there. And so let's see what happened next. Okay, so it looks like we then copied our Vagrant VM provision host file over to etc apache2 sites available project.conf. Okay, so we obviously need to set up a virtual host inside of this machine so that we can, run Apache and run a little website there. So over here, we have this host file. Now, right now, I'm on my Mac, right? This is my MacBook, and here is a little virtual host file for you to kind of play around with and set up the way you want to. But in the context of this script right here being ran, we're inside of Ubuntu's virtual machine. So you can see that this is going to copy this from /vagrant VM provision host file. So if we go inside of here, we can go there to cd vagrant VM. Okay, so you can see that we are here inside of the virtual machine, and here's the host file. And so if we cat on that, you can see that here. Okay, so we're going to copy that over to etc apache2 sites available into project.conf. And ordinarily when we make these configuration files for virtual hosts, we name them exactly after our project name, but that's because normally we set up a server with multiple projects on it. This particular Ubuntu virtual machine, this is important, I don't think I've said this yet, this is only going to be for our one project. We're going to set up a whole another Vagrant environment for any other projects we work on, so it's okay to just call this project.conf. Okay, so I think you can kind of see here the little trick that we're doing is we can put anything here on our Mac and then use this file when it fires up to move things around into the right places. Okay, so once we've done that, then we can enable that project, Apache2 enable site project.conf. And then this is always good to do, apt-get auto remove with the selection of yes for all the questions, and that's going to do some cleanup for any apt-get stuff that's not needed anymore. And then we're going to restart Apache. And as you can see from our output that we had, let's kind of go up. You can see all these things, these little outputs that have the lines right here. Those are our echoes, and we can see that Apache was eventually restarted and everything is good. Okay, so let's go down and let's make sure we can go to the site. Let's see, we're going to go to the browser. We're going to go to 10.0.0.10. And what do you know? We are accessing our Vagrant box right now. If you want to make things a little bit easier for yourself, you can always do this. Let's see, I need to exit first. We're going to exit all the way back out to the Mac, and we're going to do this. You can go down here. You can see some of my, my other stuff I was doing for other videos. And my convention is I use local if I'm accessing a VirtualBox, and I use Mac if I'm accessing my Mac. That's just my personal convention, just so you know. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can do local.example.com, and again, we're back to here. Okay, so that is pretty much it. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to show you some cool little things you can do. Okay, so we have our box going. Let's say now we decide that we want to use memcache or something like that. So normally, let's see, I kind of forget, it's apt-get install memcache. Okay. So, yep, okay. So this is the command right here for installing memcache. So let's say that we wanted to use that. This is a cool little tool for making, well, for performance and caching. We're not going to get into that, obviously, right now. Okay, so we want to install this on our box. So we can do Vagrant SSH. And we can get into our box here, and then obviously we need to do our sudo su so that we can be the root user. And you know, I could type apt-get install memcache right now, but what I've just done is made this particular box different than what the provisioning script asks it to do. So maybe I'll do this right now for practice, and we'll make sure that it works and make sure that it runs. Who knows how long this will take, actually. I wasn't really thinking about that. Okay, it's done so that we can see that it worked. But now we're going to want to go over here to our provisioning file. And we're going to want to do this. And maybe just in case it ever asks any questions, we'll do that. Okay, so we're going to want to make sure we do that and save that and make sure that's a part of our Git repository. And actually, that's a good point that I haven't even brought up yet, is the fact that this Vagrant file is just simply a text file, and the fact that this VM provision folder has our virtual host right here and our particular provisioning file set up right here. This is going to be something that your other collaborators get on your project, and so they're going to be able to do Vagrant up and get the exact same box you have, as long as you keep everything consistent like what we just did. So let's say you do want to make some changes in here and you want to kind of reconfigure Vagrant with those changes. So what we're going to want to do is I'm going to exit out to be on my Mac again. And right now the box is running, so I think the command you do when the box is already running and you want to reprovision it is this, Vagrant provision, I think. Looks like it's working. Don't worry about this. It's just a little thing with Vagrant. Okay, so we are reprovisioning the computer right now, and this time when it runs, it's going to install memcache. And you might say, well, why do that again? We manually installed it the first time. Well, I'm just kind of showing you for kind of proof of concept that you could also go in here and make a bunch of changes in here and just do Vagrant provision. Let's see. If your box isn't already running, okay, so it just reprovisioned. Let's shut down our box. That's something I haven't shown yet. So we're going to do Vagrant halt, and that's going to stop our box. By the way, let's go over here to VirtualBox, and you can see that we have, and you just saw it go from running to powered off. We can see that we have a new record inside of here, and this is something that Vagrant set up for us, so you're probably not going to need to go in here very much, unless for some reason in command line things are acting up and you need to kind of hard shut down the box. Then you could always go in here and stop and start the box that way. Or you could delete the box from here if you wanted to, or over here you can always do a Vagrant destroy, and it'll ask you a question and it'll delete the box for you that way as well. Okay, so let's say the box right now is not running, but we want to not only start it up and reprovision it. Before, when we did the reprovision, the box was running and we typed Vagrant provision. Now we're going to type Vagrant up to start up the box with the option of provision. Okay, so slight difference there. Okay, so it's going to fire up the box and reprovision it for us. I think that's pretty much where I'm going to leave you. I'm going to keep this stuff hosted at GitHub right here for you. It's at my account, which is Brad Westfall and /Vagrant Kickstarter. So enjoy that. Enjoy using Vagrant. It's really cool and fun. Hope you enjoy the video.